All right, guys, welcome to Flav Oriana's MMA show. I'm your host, Flav Oriana, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. All right, guys, so what a pay-per-view for UFC 269. Guys, I'm sorry I didn't make a recap show for last week's fight night between, what was it, Aldo and Font. Had a lot of things on my plate, but I'm here right now, and I'm very excited what we ended up seeing this past Saturday. Man, oh man. Guys, and new UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion of the world, Julianna, the Venezuelan Vixen, Pena. Yes, I'm going to start it off right there. Because of the fact that I was one of the few people to go out there, right? I've mentioned it on Twitter. I've mentioned it with close friends. Mentioned it with colleagues. I've mentioned it, with plenty of people that has stuck around by me. And, we talk MMA, when I'm not on YouTube or anything like that. And I was just like, you know what? I feel like, Amanda's going to lose. And here's why. And I was talking to people from MMAfighting.com, and I was mentioning it. I was like, Amanda hasn't defended that title since UFC 245. That was the same card where Alexander Volkanovski ended up winning the title against Max Holloway. That was the first fight. And that's when Usman defeated Covington to, secure his first title defense. And that was in Vegas. So Amanda hasn't defended the belt since UFC 245, and that was against Jermaine Durandamy. It lasted all 5 rounds. Amanda's cardio was put to the test, all right? And then since then, she has fought Felicia Spencer. She has fought, Megan Anderson. She has been very comfortable to fighting at 145. And I understand that, if you don't have to cut those 10 extra pounds and you have to constantly defend the belt, what's easier for you? Cutting those 10 extra pounds or cutting, to 145 where you're comfortable, that the competition isn't that great and you can still defend your belt. Now, I've always said it that I think at 145, I don't think there's many people out there that can beat Amanda Nunes. I mean, there is the talks of Kayla Harrison coming into the UFC. And that's something that is very intriguing. But for Amanda to go to 135 to defend the belt try to defend the belt against Julianna Pena, she was supposed to defend it originally in that August card in Houston, pulled out because of COVID. Now Julianna was pissed. She still showed up for media day and stuff like that, and she handled herself well. But Amanda needed. There was rumors that Amanda didn't have COVID. There was rumors that Amanda needed time to cut down to 135. That it's very difficult. She takes a proper procedure on how to cut down to weight. She doesn't just try to just lose the weight. She wants to make sure that she is pretty healthy on how she cuts that weight. And whether those rumors are true or not, we don't know. But going into this fight week against Julianna Pena for UFC 269, she definitely looked a lot thinner. She looked skinnier. All right. I don't know if her body was depleted. She was one of the first people to weigh in on weigh-in day on Friday, and also going in. I'm like, all right, she looks fine. Media day was a little bit of a different story. I never seen Amanda get a little bit, raveled, going back and forth, using a little bit of too much energy into Julianna Pena. And Julianna Pena came into this fight week, not scared at all. She just didn't give an F about, Amanda Nunes. She wanted to go in there. She wanted to prove her case, why she deserved that fight 5 years ago, because Julianna Pena has been calling for this fight for over 5 years, since UFC 200. Now, Julianna has said that Amanda has ducked her, has been dodging her, has been waiting, for any means necessary to avoid fighting Julianna Pena. I know when Jermaine ended up defeating Julianna Pena, I know it was by submission, if I'm not mistaken. Amanda was happy because, that's an easier fight for her. Durandamy is more of a striker. She's not a submission artist or anything like that. The fact that she was able to submit Julianna Pena, it was, sheer luck, in my opinion. But going into this fight, I was like, you know what? I don't think Pena is going to be able to knock out Nunes. I think it's going to be a long, gritty fight. It's in the last 5 rounds, and it's going to come to the point where Pena's going to have to suffocate and really challenge Amanda on that cardio. Because if she could challenge Amanda on her cardio, and that cardio isn't the greatest for Amanda, especially if she has to cut down to 135, then we're gonna start seeing, the Amanda when she fought Alexis Davis, when she fought Kat Zingano and those people. Okay, then we're gonna start seeing that Amanda Nunes, and Julianna Pena was able to do that. Okay, first round, she got dropped a couple of times, but it was more or less like it stung her, but it still kept her in the fight. She wasn't dazed off or anything like that. And Amanda went into guard. She fell into Julianna's guard, and then Amanda was trying to, grapple with her, but Julianna was also grappling too, and she was moving, forcing Amanda to move. And at one point during the grappling exchange, I did see Amanda, huffing and puffing. She was breathing heavy. She, you see her stomach, expand, breathing hard. And I'm thinking to myself, I was like, that's not a good sign in the first round. I was like, Amanda Nunes is already huffing and puffing this early into the fight. That's not a good sign whatsoever. So then going into round 2, I gave it a 10-9 to Amanda Nunes. Going into round 2, I'm like, Julianna Pena needs to take advantage of the fact that Amanda is already huffing and puffing this early into into the fight. Because I was like, it's only round 1. Usually Amanda doesn't get tired until like round 4 into the championship rounds. But yeah, so I'm thinking, all right, Pena, needs to just grapple her. But no, Pena didn't grapple with her. She stood into the fire and exchange. She was exchanging punches, and she was landing with the jab that was very effective. And we started to see a look of concern with Amanda Nunes after she was going into an exchange fight with fists. A fisticuff fight with Julianna Pena, and Julianna Pena was taking these punches. She was not dropping. She wasn't folding like the other opponents have when Amanda has fought in people like Megan Anderson, Felicia Spencer, which Felicia Spencer didn't get knocked out. That was a tough woman right there. She survived. Cyborg, Holmes, what's her name? Misha Tate. All these people have folded, and Julianna Pena stood in there and was taking everything. All right. And Pena was exchanging right back to, she wasn't just receiving all the punches. She was landing with the jab. She was frustrating Amanda, and Amanda at one point was breathing out of her mouth, and she was tired. She was getting frustrated, and she was getting hurt, and she was getting staggered more than a couple of times with that jab, because Pena's jab was, I wouldn't say it was perfect, but it was good enough to stop Amanda from trying to load up. Unload up and connecting, because Amanda was loading up a lot on her punches, and it was tiring her out. And then everybody was going wild in the T-Mobile Arena. You had Rogan, you had Anik, you had DC going crazy in the commentary during that exchange. And then Pena was able to have Amanda back up, pinned against the cage, and then takes her down, and Pena was able to still keep on top of Amanda. Amanda goes onto her knees. Big mistake right there. Forces Amanda in a situation where she does not want to be in. And before Pena is able to put any hooks into trying to secure the submission, she puts her arm around the neck, tries to squeeze a little bit, and forces Amanda to tap out. And now we have and new UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion of the World, Julianna Pena. Now, Julianna Pena, what's next for her? We know what's going to happen. 9 times out of 10, Amanda's going to get that rematch, as she should. She should get that rematch. The question is, does Amanda want it? I don't know. I don't know if she wants to cut down back to 135. I imagine she's going to take the fight, because it's the most logical thing for her to do, to try to, fix the wrong. But in a rematch against Julianna Pena, there are things that are going to need to be challenged. Amanda is going to need to get inside the lab and try to work on her cardio. Is going to have to figure out a weight that she can walk around comfortable enough where she doesn't have to lose so much weight, to deplete her body to go to 135. But for Julianna Pena, she did a fantastic job. She did what she needed to do. She said what she was going to do. She was in her face. She grinded it out. She made it ugly. She didn't make it pretty whatsoever. And she tired Amanda out, and she forced Amanda to go into a place where she has been before and she didn't want to be in, and she ended up tapping out. Now, Pena, she's going to have to fight Amanda Nunes, but she's also said she wants to get rematches in with Jermaine Durandamy, and she also wants to fight the 125 champ Valentina Shevchenko. She said that she doesn't mind going down. That would be very interesting to see Julianna Pena going down to 125 to fight Valentina Shevchenko, who's looked completely dominant in that division, which it seems like nobody has an answer for her. Now that we have some young prospects at 125, Casey O'Neill, Erin Blanchfield, who looked phenomenal on Saturday against Miranda Maverick, who dominated her. Who would have thought that was going to be a domination on Erin Blanchfield? You also have like women like Macy Barber, what's called Amanda Lemos. All these fighters look phenomenal at 125. But if Julianna Pena comes down to 125 to challenge for the belt, that would even be more eyeballs wanting to tune in to see that fight. All right. Main event: Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier, came in to on a 3-fight winning streak. Defeated Dan Hooker last year. Defeated Conor twice this year. All right, and he wanted to capture the belt. Now, him capturing the belt against Charles Oliveira was going to be very tough because Charles Oliveira does lead the UFC all-time in submission victories, and we saw how he ended up looking against Michael Chandler. Round 1 looked pretty bad. Michael Chandler could have easily finished him. There was some debate whether the ref should have just stopped it in the first round. But going into round 2, 45 seconds into round 2, Oliveira drops Michael Chandler and wins the vacant belt that Khabib ended up vacating when he retired back in February, if I'm not mistaken. Now you have Oliveira trying to defend his belt against Dustin Poirier. Tough task. Poirier looked great in round 1. There was an exchange battle between Oliveira and Poirier. Oliveira is not a point fighter. He tries to go for the finish every single time, and he was getting rocked. He was getting dropped. He was getting dazed. But Poirier knew that he couldn't just jump into Oliveira's guard because Oliveira is one of the best submission artists that has ever stepped foot into the octagon. And Oliveira, being wise as he did, was able to exchange, and he was able to rock Oliveira. At one point, I'm thinking, man, Oliveira's going to have a long night if he can't stop the onslaught fury of Poirier. But I do believe Poirier used a lot of energy in round 1 when he was loading up on his punches, when he was trying to, land every single power shot he can possible on Charles Oliveira. And I think that's what ended up hurting him going into round 2. Because in round 2, Oliveira ended up pinning Poirier down to the ground and just, hammering down on ground and pound with elbows, with punches. All right, he had Poirier flat on the ground, back on the ground flat, and that's never a situation where you want to be in if you're Poirier, when you have Oliveira on top of you. I scored it as a 10-8 round. Going after 2 rounds, I had a 19-18 Charles Oliveira, and then in round 3, Oliveira just ducks underneath one of Poirier's punches, takes the back of Poirier, and then jumps onto his back and goes for a rear naked chokehold. And Poirier's trying to fight with the hands, but eventually he couldn't fight with the hands anymore. Oliveira had the arm underneath the neck. It was securely locked in, and there was no other way around it. But Poirier did have a tap out, and still UFC lightweight champion Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira. I was very sad because I'm a big Dustin Poirier fan. I don't mind Charles Oliveira, but in this fight, I was rooting for Dustin Poirier because I wanted to see Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. Dana White did say in the press conference that it does make sense. It is going to be Justin Gaethje versus Charles Oliveira. So that's the fight to make for Charles Oliveira next. What's next for Dustin Poirier? Well, honestly, you can go back and do the Conor McGregor fight, part 4. But I was saying that, if he wants to fight Colby Covington, this is the right time possible. There's no bout agreement between Covington and Masvidal. I actually want to see Poirier versus Covington more than Masvidal versus Covington. It makes a lot more sense. There's a rivalry between Poirier and Covington. And I would love to see Poirier fight at 170. I think it's time. He's a very big 155er. I don't see him going back and fighting for the lightweight title again. It's just a very stacked division. You have killers like Beneil Dariush, Islam Makhachev, who's on the rise, Justin Gaethje, who's going to get a title shot, all right? And then you still have Conor there too. He can fight the Conor fight, like I just said, or he goes to fight Nate Diaz. There's tons of options for Dustin Poirier. It's very unfortunate that he couldn't get the fight. He couldn't get the victory over Charles Oliveira, but that's MMA for you, all right? Oliveira was just the better fighter that night. And then we had a couple of good fights on the main card. We had the Cody Garbrandt fight versus Kai Kara France. I was not expecting Kai Kara France to drop Cody Garbrandt twice in the first round and knocking him out. It was very, very sad to see Cody Garbrandt get dropped that many times. It just seems like his chin may be shattered, not physically, but like I don't think he can handle that many punches in his career. Eventually, he's gonna get dropped. He's already seen like he's getting punch drunk. He got dropped by TJ Dillashaw a couple of times. He got dropped by Pedro Munoz. He didn't get dropped like that against Rob Font, which was very surprising. But he got dropped by Kai Kara France, and Kai Kara France came in there to play. He came in there to fight, and he was ready for it. And it just seemed like Cody Garbrandt maybe was a little bit too distracted and focusing on Sean O'Malley as opposed to Kai Kara France. And Garbrandt got dropped. What's next for Garbrandt? I don't know, to be honest. You can do the Manel Kopp fight, who Manel Kopp has been looking very, very good at flyweight. I wouldn't do Tyson Nam because Tyson Nam hits hard too. He's also another one that's going to drop Cody Garbrandt. I mean, you could do the Brandon Royval fight, who doesn't punch hard. He's more of a submission artist. So you can do stuff like that. I really wouldn't want Garbrandt to fight any of these heavy punching, heavy punchers at the flyweight division, because he's gonna get dropped and he's definitely gonna get embarrassed. For Kai Kara France, he wants a title shot. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think he should fight Alexander Pantoja. That's the fight to make. The winner of that fight gets the title shot of Davidson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. And then we had Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Raulian Paiva. Raulian Paiva, said he was going to drop and knock out Sean O'Malley in the second round. The fight didn't even make it to the second round because Sean O'Malley ended up knocking out Raulian Paiva out cold. Look, the hype is real. As you guys know, I'm a big Sugar Sean fan. Sean definitely needs to be ranked. He deserves to be ranked. I want to see him fight Frankie Edgar. I think that would be a great fight. I know that's a terrible fight for Frankie Edgar, but give Sean O'Malley that big legend on his resume. Give him somebody to fight, and then move him up the ladder. But winner was Sean O'Malley. We had Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Jeff Neal. Decent fight. Unfortunately, I didn't think it deserved to be on the main card, but I firmly did believe that Tai Tuivasa versus Augusto Sakai deserved to be on the main card, because Tai Tuivasa is a well-known name compared to Jeff Neal and Santiago Ponzinibbio, okay? And you would have put that on the pay-per-view card, and you would have seen a lot more people get more intrigued with that fight. I understand you have a lot more eyeballs on the prelims just because not everybody buys the pay-per-views, but the Tai Tuivasa fight was phenomenal, all right? Round 1 didn't go expected to plan. It was more grappled. But in round 2, you saw, clear vintage Bam Bam Tai Tuivasa dropping Augusto Sakai onto the floor out cold. And then the shoey game was electric. One of the Nelk boys ended up throwing one of his shoes, and Tai Tuivasa went all in on the shoey game. He's hilarious. I love when Tai Tuivasa fights. Couldn't believe he came out to Barbie Girl. He is an instant classic. And then you had the Dominic Cruz, Pedro Munoz fights. That ended up winning fight of the night. Dominic Cruz ended up winning 29-28. I think it was a terrible stylistic matchup for Pedro Munoz. Dominic Cruz's footwork is second to none. He's one of the best to ever do it footwork-wise at the bantamweight division. Cruz, I know a lot of people are wanting to see Cruz versus Aldo. I personally don't want to see it. I actually want to see Cruz versus Merab. That's a fight that I would love to see. For Pedro Munoz, I think Pedro Munoz needs to just take a step back. Lost to Aldo, lost to Cruz. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight, Song Yadong. I know that's a very tough matchup for him, but Song Yadong, the UFC is gonna want to push him. He's a Chinese bred, fighter, and he's young. He's like 23 years old, or something along that nature. Give him, Pedro Munoz. That will be a banger of a fight. Put that on a main event of a fight night card, and we'll see a lot of people tuning in to see that. We also had the return of Josh Emmett versus Dan Ige. I personally had it 29-28 Ige. Emmett ends up coming out as a victor. Was very confused on that 30-27 call by the judge. Didn't see how Emmett won all 3 rounds. I could clearly understand round 3, But round 2, Ige clearly won that round. But yeah, guys, that covers everything on UFC 269. What a phenomenal way to close out the pay-per-view, the last pay-per-view of the year. This week coming up, we're going to have Kyle Dawkins versus Derek Lewis. Man, oh man, guys, I can't wait till the year is over. We had such a great amount of fights, killer pay-per-view cards, killer fight night cards, and it's going to end with Lewis versus Dawkins. Until then, guys, I am Flavio Ariana. Thank you for tuning in for my recap show of UFC 269, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace, guys, and please hit that like and subscribe button, guys, and I'll see you guys on the next show. See you guys, and have a good one. Peace.